Thank you.
I just want to ask you a question. I hear you make in your piece with your
Right.
double chord.
Yes, yes, multiphonics.
I don't know how you can do it.
There are many special fingerings that you have to use. You have to learn all new fingerings for the flute. That helps, and then you have to just change your lips a little bit to make sure that the airstream is wide enough to hit both notes at the same time. But if you want to study this at all, the flutist, do you know the American flutist Robert Dick? Let me write it down for you, because he's really, I think he's one of the best flutists in the world today, Robert Dick. And he has many books, method books, where you can learn all of these things. He writes a one-hour composer, and he's amazing flutist.
Wow, awesome.
And
you compose and you send to your friends.
you just type in Robert Dick.
Concert 3 days. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday concerts. So
So no time for conservatoire this time.
yeah, but there's a Alexandria Conservatoire,
Yes,
right?
yes. But there is no oboe. There's only a few instruments.
Yeah.
But only flute, piano.
But
it's
you
very
need it.
small conservatoire.
You need oboe for a full orchestra.
Yes, in Alexandria, I think they make only orchestra for strings.
Oh, and then just
But no,
play synthesizer for oboe.
I think when they need some woodwind, they
Bring from this conservatory.
Bring from Cairo. So
I play
mostly
in Cairo opera.
you do?
Yeah, I play
Oh wow! So the opera and the symphony.
yes, we have two orchestra, one opera and one symphony.
And do you have a wind band? You have that too? And woodwind quintet?
We have, yes, the same people, who play in orchestra, some people, they play quintet.
Yeah. And then there's a oboe professor?
Yes. We have Tariq Matar. And my teacher is from Poland.
Oh,
Eric.
huh? That's cool. And just for oboe, or they teach?
سعدنا جدا ان حضرتك شرفتنا ونتمنى ان حضرتك تلتقي بينا عايزين ان شاء الله
Okay, if you want to talk about how the people can get idea about the American, if they getting the TV or they getting the cinema, something like the movies, so this will give a different idea about the American people. Exactly the same. Most of the Americans can get a wrong idea or not the right idea about the people from the Middle East or from the area around us here. So contact between the people, this is make them knowing each other better than knowing by the wrong way. This is my opinion about this. For us as a people who work in tourist field or dealing with many nationality, we can knowing very well about the American. American, they are very friendly people. If you're sitting with someone for 5 minutes, you start talking about his family, how much his income, so you can know these people, they having a good heart. But the diplomatic way or the movies, this is giving different idea, not like the right idea about the people you deal with them. That's it. Thank you.
Our documentary film guy went.
It's really cool.
So what? You're most. Do you do recitals? Or what do you do?
What?
Do you do recitals, solo concerts, recitals?
Actually, I am now teaching for in the conservatoire.
Oh yeah.
And this doing higher graduate studies too, and opera orchestra. I don't have much time for playing
Not a lot
solos.
of time for solo
Yes,
stuff.
yes. But need more practice to yes,
You say you're-
more than the overall house, much more practice.
Did you say you're teaching here? Is that what you're doing?
Teaching in conservatoire, yes.
Oh, yes. Excellent. Excellent.
Really hard. When I first began, it was very hard.
I have about
You need to be patient,
Very
patient.
I have about 20, 25 10-year-olds that I teach. They just began playing the trumpet in September. And it,
First time to teach?
yeah, so it's no, faster.
Start. The more important thing is because some problems that happened to me when I began to trumpet. So I really try to be sure from the beginning. It's a more important year. Of course, the first year, more important year.
Absolutely, absolutely. What I find hard is I know how to address the problems I have, but if they have problems I've never
You
had.
need experience.
Then-
of course.
then
You
it-
need some help from
Yeah,
yes.
I
Much
go back to
experienced people.
I go back to my teacher and say I have this kid.
I do the same. I do that, but we only have one specialist trumpet in whole Egypt. One. He studied in Germany. He was first trumpet symphony orchestra here, and now he's conducting bands, band for brass and wind. And he stopped playing symphony, just the same boring. And try to play solos when I play
Go ahead.
what I really need is atmosphere. I don't have much players. I don't have the opportunity to hear. This is what I most need.
Do you have CDs?
Yes, of course, for trumpet, but also classic, because when I went to Europe, I was concentrating in classic CDs. Maurice Andrea, this French, Butler from Germany.
I love Ludwig Göransson. He's one of my favorites. I'm trying to grow his hair.
His tongue is fabulous. But I don't like him much more than Maurice in phrasing.
Maurice is just Maurice has the whole thing. It's amazing what he can do.
شبه يعني ايه سيمينار شويه I met at a phone Atlanta قريب من لوس
هو كان كلمني اهلا بيك على في بعض الحديث عن حليم كيف عبر حليم هو ده سؤال بسأله لأن أنا حتى طرحت السؤال ده كلمة روحية روحية حكمنا على من المؤكد أن الروحية مش مصنف بس بدليل
Created your
So
كاتب عمل موسيقي
بتذهلونا بدرسوها شنو حقيقة كتير كمان. فلما اتكلم قال لي فهم كانوا اسكندرية حتما هم بس ما انا لو عندي انا لازم اصور الايام اللي جايه. بس احنا خلاص هلا في بيناتنا كونتاكت وياسر. اوف كورس انا حاسال وبعدين نحن ان شاء الله لو عرفنا نلحق يوم او كده it will be nice يعني. انا كنت حابب نشوفك وتجي لنا وكده. نحن ان شاء الله يكون في ايام تاني او مرات تاني باذن الله باذن الله. وانا سعيده وانا كثير مبسوطه ان احنا شفناك. وانا بكره حسن يا رب يطلعوا يا رب يطلع حدا فيهم لسه موجود. بس هو الشارع نفسه عم بيتقفل
كان بيقعد على الساعة
ما عادش الاول زوربا بس هيدا اكيد مشهور
لأن هو واخد كلمة من البنود
يبقى خلاص
هو طويل كده.
لا هسأل عنه هو ده بس. فعلى كل حال انا كثير مبسوطة ان شفناه وان شاء الله ما انا هلا الليله حكلمه وان شاء الله يا ريت يبقى في فرصة تانية. could be anywhere I don't know بس يا ريت يا ريت يا ريت يا ريت يكون شرفنا. اهلا فيك. احنا بنشكر الدكتورة سامحة دايما هي بتيجي على نفسها نحن عارفين هي بس you are so enthusiastic.
She's my younger sister.
تصبحوا على خير. تصبحوا على خير.
موجودة إذا كان ممكن
ما تنساش من فضلك لازم تكتبها اسكندريه ولا 10 منطقه معاك الاسم احسن فرسان يشوفوا الموسيقى بتاعتك.
يا ريت لان انا فعلا بجمع.
هي بتكتب رساله
انا بكتب رساله وبعدين انا بحب ان انا اجمع اعمال مؤلفين
وهي
مصريين.
عمل مؤلفين مصريين بتلاقي احنا عاوزين برضه نشجع
يوديك المكان
يا ريت. او مش هيك ممكن حتى على
النشر بتاعه
في بيترز. أنا مكتبة. يا ريت لان يهمني جدا ويهم ناس كتيره جدا ان يكون عندهم مؤلفات لان للاسف المكتبه ولا تسجيلات ولا مجرد ان احنا يا ريت ان احنا درسنا جزء من التاريخ للدكتوره سامحه بس بقينا بندور على اعمال. سعيده جدا طبعا. وياسر مختار كلمني عن حضرتك كتير جدا.
I just need to find out if you found the Zills. I have to, he's in the midst of this and I hate to.
لو دورت على اسم
منساش وعادات اتغيرت وطريقه الكلام بالظبط ده
And then spoken, 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 spoken. And then this is the finale. Rang dang da da dang, dring dang da da dang, and there's just a ra, ra. This is just ra at the end. So it won't take that much rehearsal. It's really powerful with the kind of ancient Egyptian feeling, you know. It's a lot of fun.
Who is doing the mezzo soprano?
Denise Seachrist, she wrote the book about Halim. You know, she'll
sing?
She is conducting.
Yeah, so her.
She's a mezzo soprano.
You have soprano and mezzo soprano?
No, we just have one soprano. So the problem is we have SATB in the chorus. She'll just do SA. You know,
What's SA?
Soprano, alto. Yeah, so like in this part, she'll just cover both. No problem.
It's either official or belongs to a certain category, and it's a sad part of the society.
It is. If you would just introduce yourself, and then I'm not going to ask you questions, you can just speak.
Just speak, okay.
Yes.
My name is Samha Khouli. I am an emeritus professor of musicology at the Cairo Conservatoire, and I was dean of the Cairo Conservatoire for 10 years, and then president of the Academy of Arts. The Academy of Arts is a kind of university for the performing arts. That's where I've spent all my life. I'm still teaching there at the moment. I'm teaching courses to graduate students from all departments of the Conservatoire. Strings, piano, wind, composition, everything. And what they study with me are two things. A course on trends of contemporary music, contemporary Western music in that sense, and Egyptian creation in Western forms. This relates directly to the work of contemporary composers. These two subjects have been introduced to our curriculum very recently, in the early 90s, and I found in them a great addition because they open up the students' perception to musical experiences and musical trends and musical styles of the contemporary world. Otherwise, they would not have touched it through performance only, because in performance they are limited to their own instruments and their capacities for performing. But in appreciation and in listening and analyzing, the scope is unlimited. And on the other hand, I was quite happy to be responsible for teaching about Egyptian creation, because the Egyptian composers that you have met, some of them here, are a very small minority. They are a small unhappy minority, if I can say so, because there is not enough awareness of what they are doing. Their work for art and culture in this country is not yet well appreciated. That's why we have jumped at the idea of finding Halim El-Dabh coming to Cairo to organize this meeting with him and this dialogue. It has been very beneficial for everyone. They have met an important and venerated example of an Egyptian successful composer in the New World, and he has also met some of the new generation of composers from Egypt who have studied composition academically and who are struggling or trying very hard to express themselves in new ways, in new idioms. I think with this kind of meeting, we have had this kind of dialogue with different visiting composers from different countries. But with Halim El-Dabh, it's a very special case, because Halim is one of us, and at the same time, an American composer, American resident composer who has made his mark and made his success in the United States. What we find very laudable in the case of Halim El-Dabh is that he has not lost contact with his Egyptian roots. And this is something quite unusual for people who live abroad. We have seen such cases like, for instance, Bohuslav Martineau. When he went to the States, he sort of kept only the how shall I say, partially part of his national integrity. Several European composers, when they went to the States, forsook their origins and roots. Halim El-Dabh has not done that. That's why we have found that trying to get him to meet our young composers was of great importance. And that's why we look upon him as a really successful example of a composer who was originally Egyptian and who is now totally American, but he has been able to sort of combine the two together without much conflict.
Do you feel that this will spark inspiration for the composers in Egypt, and how do you see maybe that can happen?
I'm sure it has been very inspiring for the young composers because they have been studying his music and they have heard about it and listened to it and analyzed some of it. But the fact that they can meet him personally has been very inspiring for all the students, but most inspiring definitely to the young composers. Because if you, unfortunately, you have not been able to follow all the questions. Their questions were directed to one point. How did you find your way to your American style? What is Egyptian in your style? What is not? And you know, that the fact that he had to deal with this problem and he dealt with it quite successfully, that was very inspiring for them.
If you feel like you want to say anything more, you may. If you want to go and retire, I understand.
Well, I think it's, personally, I'm very glad to see Halim El-Dabh after so many years. If you remember, we have said that we met for the first time in the early 40s. So that's almost half a century ago. And it's always wonderful to meet old friends and to meet them at a new level. I mean, this is the professional level. We're not meeting as personal friends at all. Maybe we are, but mainly as on the professional level. So I feel that his presence here has been very fruitful. And it still will be in Alexandria after his concerts. And I wish you all a very nice stay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey. Hey. You don't have to say anything.
Symposium.
At some point tonight, I would like to sit and talk with you for 15 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. It is always nice to, you know, have the local people hang out.
لا صحيح من منيا ما انا حسيت ابو تيج والمنيا
لا والله شايفني وما انت شرفتنا قاعد فين حضرتك بقى؟
احنا معزومين بالمكتبة الاسكندرية.
لكن انت عايش معاهم فين؟ في انجلترا ولا فين؟
لا احنا عايشين في جامعة في جامعة كنت.
جامعة كنت.
تعالي
بقالك سنين بقى.
شوية كده واحد برضه.
أكيد في أولاد هناك بقى
Get a nice smile.
زوجتك مش مصرية. ما أنا حسيت كده مش عارفة. طب ليه؟
أنا عجبني أجيب عليها المصرية بقى.
طب ليه كده؟
ما أنا هجيب عليها حق أتجوز تاني عليها.
الله ده لازم. ولد مصري. مصري مصري رباع.
جوزي اتجوز عليا.
والحنة لسه في إيديا.
والحنة لسه في إيديا.
Will you tell us in Egyptian to have a safe trip to Alexandria?
In Alexandria, what?
In Egyptian, will you say have a safe trip to Alexandria?
Alexandria?
Yeah, travel safely to Alexandria.
Yes, safety.
Will you say that for the camera?
Travel
Yes.
for Alexandria is very safety.
Well, what I'm saying is, can you say that in Arabic?
In Arabic? يعني هو عايزني أقول السفر إلى الإسكندرية آمن. آمن. أصلا عايزني أقولها بالعربي. السفر إلى الإسكندرية آمن. Travel for Alexandria is safety.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I kiss Mr. Muhammad. He's Egyptian man.
Yes.
مصري.
بس لازم ثلاثة.
ثلاثة بقى.
ازاي بقى؟ الصعايدة ثلاثة. واحدة بس.
انت شرفتنا يا مستر محمد حقيقي، وهم معاك موسيقيين بقى ولا؟
هو
ميوزيشن؟
هو
إيه؟
متخصص
هو
ياخد
تصوير.
تصوير ياخد تسجيلات على
ما شاء الله عليك، ما شاء الله عليك.
هو
I am a musician though. I make hip hop music, rap music.
راب؟
هو هي صحفي.
ما انتوا مجموعة بقى.
مجموعة.
انتوا مسافرين اسكندرية النهارده؟
إن شاء الله.
Today travel Alexandria?
Alexandria.
You go to the sea?
Yes.
Swimming?
Yeah.
وبعدين نرجع هنا.
Good weather, wonderful.
وبعدين نرجع هنا بعد ما نخلص.
You want to go out there? We'll get you in there soon.
قول لي عايز
Yeah,
ايه؟
I'm gonna put you in there.
هنصورنا معاك. تقدر؟
Thank you. Here, get both of you.
Yes.
I'll remember you guys now. Get some money. I'm just getting you as we walk out.
I want to see what is the exchange. No. They are all here ready to go?
I think they are.
Yeah, I want to go to the bathroom before.
Yeah, that's right.
You know where it's at, right?
If he goes first, Tyson won't be.
The elevator was full of Italiano.
Such a musical language. How does that exchange rate? It looks bad. Not good. Dollars, Bahraini.
It's not
Bahrain and Qatar were almost the same.
It's not 823, is it? That's fast as
819.
It's a different.
Do any of you think that when we get there, we're going to get new orchestral music from other Egyptian composers that we haven't seen yet?
It's entirely possible.
It is possible.
So in other words, we're going to have solo pieces
It's
and
possible.
orchestral pieces that we're going to have to learn
more
while we're
concerts
there.
than what
Or
we're
maybe not.
currently
Yes.
slated for.
We'll find out.
That's
It sounds to me like you have just a lot of pieces. I mean, when are we supposed to learn all these pieces? I guess we'll have more time than we've had here, though.
I think we have 4
Well,
days.
we won't be touring all the time. I mean,
Right, right.
no.
We'll be in one location. And
This is reminding me more and more of the Greek trip that I took, where I went to Athens and I really got to be a tourist. But then we went to Thessaloniki and I had 3 concerts.
Morning.
No.
Good morning. Is everybody in the bus seeing his bag up there? Yeah? Before we're gonna put it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cairo in the morning time like 18 million. In fact, we have a little bit different system which could be a hectic, but anyhow, because of this overpopulation problem that we have, we do have Muslims, we do have Christian as well on the country, so we do have a lots of weekends here. In general, it's always Saturday and Sunday, but in Egypt here, the weekly prayer for the Muslim is not Sunday, it is Friday. So we have governmental offices and schools are taking Saturday and Friday off. We have the private sector, which is working always for Friday and Saturday off. We have some Christian and the private sector as well who would prefer Saturday and Sunday off. So we have like 4 days on the week in which some part of the population would be staying home. Hopefully they would be staying home. But if we would talk about Monday, we should know that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will be the worst time. We are here on the area which is called as Giza. I believe you heard always that the pyramids of Egypt here used to be called the pyramids of Giza. Giza is not related to ancient time. It is not deriving from an ancient world. Giza actually is a modern world in which we divided the city into 3 governorates. Each one got its name, one to the north, which is called as Calliopeia, one to the south, which is called Giza, and the one in the middle is called Cairo. For us, which are the people of Cairo, we don't say ever that we are from Giza or we are from Calliopeia. We used to say that we're from Cairo, and that's it. But anyhow, Giza is the southern part of Cairo here, and it is very famous for the pyramids, which is located on the southernmost point of it. But meanwhile, there is one of the very famous and very important buildings on this area, which is Giza, and this is actually the oldest university all over Africa, and it is the first in Egypt here, and it is Cairo University. I believe we almost heard all about Cairo University. It is the enclosure to our right hand side. This is Cairo University, and the one here is Faculty of Art.
Denise, I graduated from
Yeah.
graduated.
Agriculture. Yeah.
We have here.
You graduated from here?
Yeah. This is Faculty of Art. And we have Faculty of Information, Political Studies, and we have on the other side the Faculty of Law, Faculty of Archaeology, where I was graduated as well in here in Cairo University, Faculty of Archaeology. And you will see from a distance a dome, a big dome over there. This dome actually is the main theater of Cairo University. When we ever have like some plays, they always played inside here, a concert or something like this. It used to be always in the main theater. There is some faculties outside the enclosures. Mainly one of them is the one to our left hand side, which is like 10 o'clock now for us. This is the engineering faculty or Faculty of Engineering.
Nice
The Faculty of Agriculture is on the same enclosure, but it's like almost half a mile distance. It will be to our right hand side, and of course I will point to where the doctor and Tyson were graduate.
أنا برضه زراعة.
أنا عارف عايز أعلم حضرتك. It is we used to call Egypt sometimes as the yellow country. It's desert and nothing but desert except 3.5%, which is green area, and this is a very narrow, long strip, the valley created by the Nile. You cannot imagine that the widest part of this valley will not be more over 10 miles. Because always the desert is surrounding, and the north of Cairo, the Nile is dividing into 2 main branches, creating a shape of upturned pyramid. A pyramid, it's base to the Mediterranean and it's top to Cairo. This shape actually was similar to the 4th Greek letter, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta. So when the Greeks were here and they occupied Egypt 332 BC by Alexander the Great, they called this area as Delta. We're still calling it by the same term. One of the things which is very common, that most of the names, especially the names of our kings, are always pronounced Greeks. Mykerinos, Khephren, King Cheops, the builder of the Great Pyramid, as well as of Amenophis, Ramses. The reason is the first attempt to write down the history of ancient Egypt had been done by the Greeks. So one of the very famous authors who wrote the history is the man, his name is Herodotus, and Herodotus is considered as the father of the history. He said a very famous phrase, which is the history is still preserving, that Egypt is the gift of the Nile. Yeah, sure, for sure. Without the Nile, no one would be living on this country. But we should say that in recent time, we used to add another phrase to this part, saying that the Nile as well was a gift of Egypt. A life after this, and believe that when the man died, his spirit was supposed to attend a judgment day, and on this judgment day, they will judge him as
Handsome. He have no one inside. He's just do it for fun. Yeah.
That's why the people sometimes do not listen.
I got idea. If we're going now to the pyramids, it's gonna be foggy. So you...
the power or the magical power of the voice. They believe that creation had been started when the God ordered something to be created. So this thing had been created. So there is always the magical power behind the voice. And this is why they were drawing scenes on their temples and their tombs, believing that when you read the hieroglyphic verses, this scene will come into real. So it's always still about what the man will do in his afterlife. But it wasn't accessible or possible to all the people to bring the artists to do this painting and drawing on the walls. And this has actually happened to the majority of the people. So what happened was a very simple problem of leaking of these scenes inside the tombs, which is belonged especially to the poor people. Until they discover once upon a time how to transform a leaves of a plant, long leaf, which is transformed into rods. This is mainly is the plant or the flower, which we used to call it as the papyrus flower. Even wood paper, which we are using right now for our paper, is deriving originally from wood papyrus. They found that this papyrus is preserving the colors. And by this way, when you have a scenes painted on the papyrus, it will last with you forever, which is guaranteed when you read the verses of the hieroglyphic, it will come into real. So you would be equal to the rich people, but right now the poor people could have it in their tombs. Investigation which took place because some tombs were opened by tomb preppers. So we know what kind of investigation they did, and the people who were accused, and finally they judge them and what kind of verdict they give to them. So we start to know about even the law in ancient Egypt and how they were taxing it. In some other roll of papyrus, the scenes were always taken from great tombs. So we start to realize that it is not a royal cult pyramid, which is the pyramid of King Cheops or Cheops. But let me tell you his right name. You know what's his right name? Khofo is in which we are mainly getting all of the cars which comes out from the factory. It is something which used to be done. Kitty cute. Isn't she cute?
Yes. Yeah, in the basket.
She's a dream. She's cute. She's happy.
She's gonna have our picture too. She doesn't mind.
They're the Egyptian. They never lose this smile. She could be very, very poor. She could be thinking hardly how she can feed the two girls in the front of her. But still, they are happy and they are smiling.
بيجيب من العجلة من تحت بيجيب من العجلة وجايب منها حاجات ومبسوطين منها أوي.
ربنا يخليها لك يا رب.
خد يا سام
They called it the king. So the pyramid, word the pyramid means king. The Greek, but it became so common and we start to use the word. I guess this is a fantastic view, which we were always dreaming, planning to come and get.
بس كده قدامنا خلاص ماشي مش هنوجع دماغنا. ننزل على رجلين ننزل على رجلين ننزل على رجلين. ثانية واحدة بس المايك امسك المايك ثانية واحدة. قمر هيخش على رجليهم مفيش مشكلة.
Panorama.
Yeah, this is one. Sure, guy wants us to. Hello.
شوف وين انت كنت انت فيه والله لسه حبيت على فهم طب على خير انت هتيجي تخلص هنا
نخلص هنا وبعدين عندنا ورق وبعدين هنطلع عندكم يعني قدامنا ساعة كده
كده تستفتح انا وامشي خلاص قدامك انت 20
لا بص
عسل على البدله كشفتح منك انا وامشي ورق فرد
هيثم هيثم
محمد حضرتك من اول واحد اوكي ليتس جو الحمد لله على
الصورة دي طنش
وحشانا كتير
Security, so you need to.
We're doing a group photo.
Gosh, I don't even know my wife.
One more, one just. Touching the strings.
Oh, no.
Me and her and David.
Yes.
In Egypt.
Right.
Can you believe that?
I can't.
Oh.
بلاش خلاص عارفه لو بعت لحد تاني هعمل لك قلق خلاص ما تبيعيش لحد تاني انت عامله زي
مصر هيثم خدمة دور روسي عاوز المصري
Yeah.
It's a school trip. And some of them are coming from outside Cairo. They come and spend the whole day here visiting the museum, the pyramids, the citadel, and then going back. Yeah.
Okay, please. Check it.
النبي يا جماعه ادونا سكه لو سمحت.
يلا يلا بنات يلا.
أسماء ابن أسماء يلا
My colleague has 10 pounds different. Come on, see, I don't have 10 pounds. Just a second, thank you.
This statue was found in here, and it was left open for the tourists. Don't toss anymore, it's a waste. Is that
We're just nearby the Sphinx, and we're going to be in the front of the Sphinx in a second, but we have to pass through this temple to reach to the Sphinx. On this temple in 1889, this pit was discovered accidentally. Where we discovered inside this pit, 5 statues had been buried. One of them is a very famous statue. I believe you saw it yesterday in the Egyptian Museum, which is the diorite statue of King Khafre, the builder of the second pyramid. The whole 5 statues were buried here. We have one question, which is why the Egyptians were burying their statues by this way. It happened on the late period, when Egypt was occupied by many invaders, and these people were always coming to destroy the civilization and destroying the statues. So the priests who were afraid of what would happen to these statues start to bury them on pits like this one. After taking them to the Egyptian Museum, this pit was kept like this, and it became like a wishing well pit, where the people are dropping coins and making a wish. I have to tell you one thing, which is, you saw the guard outside is my friend. After the sunset, we come both together, we collect the money, and we share it 50-50.
So put a lot of money for this, okay?
Drop big coins.
Get away, can throw $1, okay? If you would throw 100, we'll shoot 100.
One had head and the other ones had heads cut. Did the Hyksos cut the head?
The head, the neck is always the weakest point.
Oh, okay. They didn't
ever fall. It always lose the head.
Yeah.
Egypt, they never ever built the pyramid as an individual building. The pyramid was a tomb, which the king is going to be buried inside it. But there is always some other buildings used to be attaching the pyramid, and this is what we used to call as the pyramid complex. What the complex used to consist of? It used to have the tomb itself, which is the pyramid. To the east side, there was a temple which used to be called as the mortuary temple, where they will practice the sermons to the dead king after burying him. But nearby the green land, there is always a temple which is used to build it, and recently we called this temple at the Valley Temple because it's just overlooking the valley. This is the oldest survival valley temple ever discovered in Egypt, which is belong to the complex of the second pyramid, the pyramid of King Khafre, and it is back to around 2640 BC. The temple actually was built originally of limestone, but the whole walls were gilded by a layer of gray and red granite. The nearest quarry of granite is Aswan, which is 620 miles to the south of here. The shape of the temple was like a letter T. We have a transversal hole here, and we have a pillar's hole. All the pillars here, which are in all 16, all the pillars are cut out of one single block of red granite. The estimated weight between 17 to 18 tons. Now we have one thing to ask, which is, what was the function of this temple by the time of ancient Egypt? This temple served for 3 important ceremonies. The first one was receiving the dead body of the king, washing the body and purifying it by adding the perfume and preparing it for the second ceremony. The second was what's so called as the mummification. Mummification briefly, and sorry for the disgusting speech, used to be started always by penetrating the left part of the belly, taking off the viscera, which used to be stomach, liver, lungs, and the kidneys. After taking them out, they were mummifying them and putting them in 4 jars, which used to be well known as the canopic jars. Then they used to put a hawk shape into the nose, and they were breaking the muscle of the nose. I said sorry for the disgust. After breaking the muscle of the nose, they were demolishing the isthmus bone, which is just right behind our head, and by this way the brain would come as a liquid from the nose, which would take 3 to 4 days sometimes. After getting rid of the whole the oil or the whole liquids into the body, they were adding salt. This means used to dehydrate the body. And after dehydrating the body, they were using like 7 different kinds of salt. Natron is one of them, which is in the Western Desert. They were wrapping the body by sheets of linen, which would be the final part of the mummification. This actually used to be done inside here, and when they finished, they would do the last sermon, which had been well known as the opening of the mouth sermon. What was the opening of the mouth sermon? The high priest used to come with a wooden tool, just like the one the dentist is using right now, and he was trying ceremony to open the mouth of the dead man. Why he would open his mouth? For 2 important reasons. The first one was to allow this man to defend himself in the court of God Osiris, which is the judgment day, saying, I'm innocent, I obeyed the gods, I followed the order, so they can judge him, or the verdict would be to his side. Second was to allow this man to enjoy the offering which should offer to him in the afterlife, which is food and drinks, as life after this is going to be similar. Before leaving the temple here, we may notice that there is 22 pets. These pets were dedicated actually to put the statue of King Khephren, which we saw yesterday in the Egyptian Museum. The black statue with the falcon behind the head leading the wings. And that will give us an idea about how many statues used to be originally inside this temple. One more important thing we can catch while we are here, which is the accuracy of building of ancient Egypt. Do we have a ticket? One of our tickets? Okay. This our ticket, which is a very slim paper. If I can take this ticket and try to insert it in between 2 blocks of stone, it wouldn't go. We can sure notice that in some other blocks we can put it, but this is a work which had been done through time, erosion, and people along the years. But the original design always used to be by the same way. This is could teach us how the Egyptians were building their temples, their pyramids, without using concrete. The Egyptian actually used to bring 2 blocks of stones and they put them side by side after smoothing them. And in between they were pouring water. If the water could pass through, they will continue smoothing until it reached to a level in which when they put 2 blocks side by side, the water wouldn't be able to pass through. At that level, they can use it in building, which is simply, by our modern terms, a kind of vacuuming the air in between 2 blocks. We know very well that when we put our hands like this, we can separate them because of the air. If we don't have air between, they will stick together. So the same idea in ancient Egypt, in which this way allowed them always to use a very, very accurate and smooth blocks of stone, and we're talking about the red granite, which is quite hard stone, and allowed them always to use big blocks. Of course, they didn't need to spend a lot of time smoothing small number or small size of blocks. They preferred always big ones. It could carry the weight, and it could be much easier to smooth it on a wide scale. Yes.
So when they cut it, it's like just a big kind of round thing, and then cut it later into the. I always thought they tried to cut it perfectly from the cliffs or whatever.
Okay, if we started from the natural rock itself and say how the Egyptians were cutting blocks of stone, it seems to be a very hard job to be done. And it seems that we need big muscles and strong people to do this job. But if you ever go to a quarry, which we still have quarries in Egypt working manual, you will find it is not the same idea. People were using their minds in a way, allowed them to cut the stone in a very easier way. How they were cutting the stone? They were cutting the stone by one of 2 ways. The first one, if they like to get a block of stone horizontal, like this one. Let's say we're going to cut this block of stone, or bigger. The second one, if they like to cut something vertical. If it is horizontal, they will start always on the natural block by having a hammer and chisel. And they were making holes into the block. This hole is supposed to be in one straight line. Okay? After making a lot of small holes, they were fitting inside wood. They would do this here, and on the proposed size of the rock. After fitting the wood, they would start to pour water, a lot of water. Because of the water, the size of the wood would expand. When it starts to expand, this hole will start to enlarge it. So they will fit it with more wood. And each time they pour water, it will reach them to put big size of wooden sticks, which will allow these blocks to have cracks. These cracks will allow it later on to enlarge the hole from up and from the bottom, and by this way they could free it from the natural rock. Then it comes to how they can take a block of a stone up. That was much easier, which seems to be much harder. The Egyptian used to make quite tiny canals on two sides. Let's say we need to cut a block of a stone like 3-4 feet width. So they will come on each side and they make a canal which is like concave passage. This concave passage, which they can always cut it by using hammer and chisel, this concave canal would be almost like 1 feet maximum, and sometimes it is like 10 inches width on both sides, vertical, all the way long. It could be extending for 20 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet. And after this, they start to put on this two concave passages, they start to put inside them wood, or sometimes leaves from any plant. And then they start to burn fire on them. They let the fire burn it for a while, and then all of a sudden, they come and pour water on this fire. Because of the changing of the temperature between the heat and the coldness, it caused the vertical crack. What you should know is these vertical cracks are so accurate, so exact. So you didn't need to do a lot of job to smooth, because almost it comes in a very smooth shape. But you need to make it smoother, which is the work here were not as we can imagine. It's much easier. Let me show you something could be a proof that these people were so accurate. Is this your ticket, sir? Thank you very much. Something could prove that the Egyptians were so accurate by a way could be like a legend. And we now could hear from people who would say aliens came from the sky and built the pyramids and so on. They always say that they built the pyramid, but they never claim that they built something else. While we do have some buildings in Egypt, building them would be harder than building a pyramid. Let me give you an example. You can see the size of these blocks, and you can see how hard it is as a red granite. I would ask you, if you don't mind, to stand behind one of these pillars and look straight ahead to see the difference among the pillars on one straight line.
Well, you can see the shadow.
If you don't mind, please have a look opposite to this direction. And if we please move a bit forward and come here to look to this.
You're right, the shadow's supposed to be right on it.
We will find
Everything
Don't
is,
you agree with
that's
me
a
that
45
it
degree
is
angle.
almost an impossible job to get this accuracy while we are talking about red granite, very, very hard stone, with this scale very big in size? As I was telling you, the Egyptians were very skillful because that was the atmosphere. This is the environment. The people were always nearby the desert, so they always work on stone. Let me tell you one more thing, which is, when we talk about the stone, this is what we used to call as a cut into the stone. And the Egyptian tried as much as possible to minimize the cuts, because it used to be a hard job to be done. But meanwhile, they were in need for big size of blocks to carry and to make it easier to be smooth. Let me show you one block of a stone could be considered as a miracle.
Hey, you know what? I want to ask you. Excuse me.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
You got your photo?
Got one.
I'm back, by the way.
Not yet.
Oh, you're
Guys, you know what?
Get rid of the black.
Will you guys do that again? Play it.
Did you miss it?
Yes. I missed.
Do it again.
Will you do it again?
Don't remember.
Please, just do
remember it offhand.
That was rehearsal. This is for real. You guys.
Give him another two.
I missed.
Didn't get your camera yet,
I missed part of it.
There's that part when you have the two trumpets from monotone. Or you don't remember?
I don't remember it offhand.
Whatever. Just to improvise on it.
Monotone. We did it last night, right?
We did do it.
All I remember is.
No, better not play that.
No, bad idea.
What did you guys just play?
Also describes Zarathustra. Carnival of Venice.
Play what you played before. It sounded wonderful.
Yeah, we can do that.
One more? I'm gonna do one with just you, Al.
CD only 10
There you go.
pounds.
Yeah, 10 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, one more.
One more? I'm running out of repertoire.
I hope they're good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.